Hi, this is Vince from PA Psychic Study Group. Today, we're going to have a nice conversation about the Grimm Reaper. I know a lot of you out there think that this is a bunch of baloney, but it's not. These are all based on true stories, my own personal experience. I never write or say anything about what I have read in a book, unless I tell you first. But this is a story about when I was in Fort Huchaca during the Vietnam War. I was getting ready to be transferred out to another advanced training school. But I had a lot of time there, and that is in just south of Tucson, Arizona. I don't know if you all know it, but Tucson is one of the power centers of the world. I would rate Tucson right next to Egypt. As a matter of fact, they have even found artifacts in the Tucson area and the surrounding area, like the Grand Canyon, of Egyptian artifacts. They actually found it in the wall, a huge wall, the Colorado River, I believe, going through it. I would guess that at some time the Colorado River was actually that high, like halfway up the ravine or the side of the mountain, and they're able to just bring all their stuff in on boats and hide all their sarcophaguses and boats, spears, gold jewelry. They found all that stuff in there, but it's now being hidden from the public, and you can't even go in that area to see anything, because it's under air surveillance. And the only way you can get there is like rappelling off the side of the cliff, which is, you'd have to go down a couple 100 feet. Forget it. I mean, hanging off a rope. And make sure you don't even come in the area. Okay, but we're getting besides the point here. Now, when I was in Fort Huchaca, one day I think it was like a weekend. I didn't have a weekend pass or nothing, so I had to hang around the base. So I decided to go sit in the bleachers of a little baseball field they had there. It felt good just to sit there and not have anybody tell me what to do, what time to get up, what time to eat, what time to do everything. That's what I used to hate about the Army. Well, anyway, when I was sitting there, just kind of like gathering my thoughts, I had on my regular Army fatigues with the little Army baseball hat, olive drab. So I was sitting there by myself. I was listening to insects buzzing around me, flies, tumbleweeds blowing by me. And believe it or not, there was a lot of background noise. Okay? You would think in the desert you wouldn't hear nothing, but that isn't true. There's a lot of noise there, if you really listen to it. And as I was looking out over the desert, all of a sudden, all the noise stopped. Everything. I mean, if you got a pin, and you picked up a pin, and you dropped it on the bleacher, you would hear it bounce. I mean, that's how quiet it got. It was really eerie. The hair on my arms stood up. And so I started listening for any kind of sound that I could hear. And I could hear nothing. But way in the distance, I heard like a swoosh sound. really far away. And then I sat there for about another 10 minutes. Then I heard that swoosh again. But this time it was a little closer. And another 15 minutes, I heard the sound again, and this time was only about 100 feet from me. I had no idea what this was. And so I started thinking that I heard this sound once before. I think my father used to have a sickle, a small one, of those curved ones, like it looked like from a Russian sickle or something like that. You cut the field with. If you really go like this, real quick, and it's really sharp, you're going to hear like a swoosh. But the swoosh I heard was about 3 or 4 times louder. I mean, that sickle would probably have to be a good 3 feet long to make that loud of a swoosh. Now, there was nothing out there. I was on a baseball field. There was nothing out there. Then another 10 minutes pass, and I hear the swish again. This time it's only like 25 feet away. I mean, this was loud. Still, no other sounds in the background at all. So, a light went off in my head. I says, you know something? That's a sickle. I says, who would have a huge sickle like that? Now, I remember seeing in some old books or something, even cartoons, in the newspaper, of the Grimm Reaper standing there with like a big, huge sickle like they used to use, like in Europe. Oh man, I said, that has to be it. That's a huge sickle ripping through the air. Then it dawned on me, this guy's after me. So, I said, God, if you're ever going to help me, I think now is when I need your help. So, about maybe 6 or 7 minutes passed, and I felt like this thing was standing right in front of me. And in my ear, somebody shouts out, "Duck!" So I get down. I no sooner put my head down, this sickle comes right over the top of my head, knocks my hat off, makes my hat fly about 15 feet away. And I was shaking like a leaf. Don't ask me who told me to duck, but somebody told me to duck at that precise second that that sickle came over my head. And then I waited I was still shaking, and I waited a couple minutes because I couldn't believe it. I didn't know what to do. I was scared to death, like a deer stuck in the headlights. And all of a sudden, the sound came back all around me. Tumbleweeds started blowing around again. Little insects started making noise and buzzing. A little breeze in the air. You could almost hear the grass moving as the wind came, moved it. So I went over. I said to myself first, I said, I must be out of my mind even thinking that this was a sickle. Who ever heard of anything so ridiculous in all your life? A sickle going over your head? Come on. I said, it must have been a gust of wind that made a swoosh that went over my head. And so I was trying to talk myself out of it being the Grimm Reaper. Then I looked around for my hat, and there it was about, like I said, 15 feet away. I went over and I picked it up. When I picked it up, I noticed in the side of my hat, there was a crease that went straight across that hat. Looked like somebody tried to cut it with a dull knife. The material was just like, it was a sharp crease. Looked like the only way you could get that kind of a crease was if you put a weight on each side of the hat and you let it stay on top of a sickle. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this thing was like somebody had it in a paper cutter and tried to cut it and it wouldn't cut. You know, and it went in between the blade and the housing or something. It was like that. I couldn't believe it. When I saw that thing, I says, holy crap. It was the Grimm Reaper. So don't let anybody tell you there is no such thing as the Grimm Reaper. I couldn't say it. It was invisible. The only thing I could do was hear it. If you're ever in an area where all of a sudden the sound stops, everything stops, like time stands still, and you hear a swoosh in the background, you know who it is. And you better ask God to help you out. I'll tell you, it's God's honest truth. I don't know why he was after me. Maybe he was just in the neighborhood and saw me and decided to come and knock somebody else off. I have no idea. But they're for real, believe me. Okay, this is Vince from PAPsychicstudygroup.com. Check out my website. Join. I live in Northeast PA, right on the border of New Jersey. Come down and we'll start some meetings up and we can talk, we can share experiences. Okay, people, we'll see you next time. For now, stay alert, stay alive. Okay, we'll see you soon.